Here to show us the path to an inclusive digital future, please put your hands together for Mr. Julian Gorman.
Good morning. First, thank you to MCMC for the invite to such a wonderful event. I think everyone who was here last night and here this morning for the day are going to be inspired by the journey that Malaysia has already started on, the path they've already started on for 5G, but also in the context of bringing these people together, this conference, to talk about its impact on humanity. There's a lot of things we do in the world where we're not really thinking about the purpose or for the greater good, but certainly bringing the industry, government, and the region together today to sort of celebrate the journey that Malaysia is on for 5G is an admirable achievement, and the vision they have is certainly something that GSMA is very happy to support, and we're happy to be here today. So I'm going to walk you through some numbers around the industry. GSMA represents 800 mobile operators from around the world. We are the trade body for the members. We also represent more than 300 associate members from the digital ecosystem who come together to make the mobile industry what it is. And as we've come together as a trade association, a very big part of our focus now is on its impact on humanity. The Sustainable Development Goals were referred to before by Samir. Is a big part of what we do and a big part of what our industry is out to do. But it does bring me back because 15 years ago, almost to the day, I was the head of mobile broadband for Vodafone Group, and we were launching HSDPA just 15 years ago. That was the first time mobile broadband was clocking over 1 megabit per second. Now, in those days, as head of mobile broadband, the debate was, could we call mobile broadband, because it was just getting over 1 megabit per second. And the demonstration at Mobile World Congress 15 years ago, where I stood there with the King of Spain, was to show him how fast you could download a song with 1 megabit per second. It only took a couple of minutes. And now with 5G, we're talking about you can show your boarding pass to the gate, to the check-in people at the gate, and by the time you've entered the plane, you can download a high-quality 4K video on your phone. So the world has massively changed in 15 years, and the big difference is 15 years ago, as I stood there in front of the King of Spain, we weren't talking about the impact on humanity. We were talking about how fast you could download a song. Whereas here, last night, today, we're talking about how we're going to change the world for the better. And in part of that, to know where we're going, part of it's good to understand where we've come from and how we've got here. So, nearly 30 years ago, the invention of the World Wide Web and the first GSM phone call on the Orbital 901 phone, which weighed a couple of kilos, came in a handy carry pack about the size of an average laptop briefcase nowadays. The mouse came somewhat later, but we're talking that is the origins of what we're talking about. And in those days, Vodafone, when they launched GSM networks, were thinking they were going to sell a couple of 100,000 connections. Now, nearly 2/3 of the world's population is connected to the internet, or connected to mobile phone, or mobile technology. And what we're doing over the internet is completely different than what was considered in 1989, when it was about sharing a few research papers between people, sharing a few documents, a few texts. I mean, now it's education, it's health, it's digital citizenship, it's mobile commerce, everything is moving to digital. The digital industry and digital economy currently makes up more than 5% of the world's GDP, and it's growing. In some markets, it's already up in the 6 and 7% range, and growing fast. So, if we look at the technology evolution we've come, and as was announced when I started, I've been here for more than 20 years in mobile telecommunications, but I wasn't there at the start. But I certainly grew up in the days before mobile phones existed. And if you look at the path, in 2G it was all about voice and text. I think if people remember back in those times, we used to sell the Nokia banana phone, and we used to try and tell you that that was the start of the internet. But now we really recognize that it's really 4G has been the era that is really the mobile broadband and going online and going on the internet has really started to change the lives, change communities, and really become inclusive in nature. Is a way of lifting people out of poverty through education, through health, through access to information. Bringing people online has given them an opportunity to launch businesses and to become part of a global economy. And the one thing is, when we get to 5G, what are we talking about? It's bigger, it's faster. And actually, we've done customer surveys which say most consumers, about 25% of them more, think 5G is just going to be a bit faster. But in actual fact, I think most people in this room already have a hint or already know that actually 5G is going to be something more than just a bit faster. Because if you think about it, actually 4G was the first generation where actually what you did on your mobile phone became more convenient, more faster than actually what you could have done at home if you'd grown up on a laptop or a PC connection. 5G goes far beyond what you get in your home. The other thing to say, I think, is that in 4G, so if you think about 12 years ago or so, which is when 4G was launched, is the perception of what was going to happen, how much of your economy, how much of the society we live in was going to be changed, was probably not there. 12 years ago, you still had, BlackBerry was the #1 smartphone. Nokia still existed. The Orbital had died a long time before that. But now everybody in this room is live, whether it's a Grab taxi or whether you're accessing your email or whether the way you chat and communicate, or if you look at what your kid's doing and you have no idea what that TikTok thing is. But it has changed your lives. It changed the way you communicate between yourselves and the way you interact with your community, interact with your work, and the way the world interacts together has radically changed. And 5G is going to be a generation which massively changes that again for the future. So, where are we? There's about 24, 25 markets now have launched 5G, or will have launched by 2025, and that number, to be honest, is growing. When I say it's 24 on the slide, I think it's at least 25 by now because Thailand's planning on auctioning some spectrum next month, and we are seeing nations start to come on board the 5G train and the ambition to bring it forward to change and transform their economies even faster. Notice we do expect, and this slide's a year ago, so we were expecting Malaysia to do it this year, and it's good to hear the announcement that it is going to happen. But what's that mean from a mobile industry point of view? I represent the mobile members. We're expecting to spend around $574 billion in capex in the region, and we're talking Asia here, by 2025. By 2025, that's mostly about 2/3 of that is on 5G, but by 2025, you're starting to talk 85 to 90% of capex spend will be on 5G. But at 2025, we're talking subscribers, about 70% of subscribers will still be on 4G. 5G is, we're actually at the dawn of 5G. In the 4G comparison, it's 2007. Okay? And if you think about the real impact that 5G made on your life, the change that happened, there is a long cycle. Grab, Ubers, the real app change to your consumer lifestyle really started to happen about 5 years ago. And so we need to be conscious that when we turn on 5G in Q3, in Malaysia in Q3, you're not going to get the 2% GDP bump in December. We need to understand it is a long path. But adoption will grow rapidly, and from a numbers point of view, adoption will grow much faster than 4G. But still, by 2025, in the region, we expect about 18% of the people using 5G. In markets, that will vary significantly. So in South Korea, who launched last year very aggressively, more than 5 million connections already, we're talking about 60 to 70% of subscribers in 2025 will be on 5G, the rest of them on 4G. In Malaysia, so if you look at the numbers there, you say Northeast Asia 50% all up, Oceania, so Australia, quite strong. Southeast Asia around 8% across the region. In Malaysia, we actually expect Malaysia to be above the Asia-Pacific average, probably around 20% will be on 5G by 2025. But there is a lot of dependencies on that. The opportunity, so we'll come back to the dependencies. From an opportunity point of view and the impact, we see about a 900 billion benefit by 2034, so over the next 15 years. Most of that GDP benefit in manufacturing for utilities. And there's been a lot of talk about the impact on industry. And tomorrow, with the tour, you get to see a lot of use cases, which will be very industry-based. You can see there are a lot of the benefits in manufacturing utilities. Agriculture is still sizable, but a lot of professional services as well. But it is down to as long as the right conditions are in place. And there's three big factors we need to consider, which is going to impact the speed of adoption and the value it will generate. If I start from the top with the opportunities. On the launch of 5G, there's some pretty obvious uses for consumers. You know, fixed wireless access, replacement of last mile fiber is something that's been launched in a number of markets. And we're seeing some good growth, especially where it's hard to put fiber in the ground or it's hard to get to that last mile because of the sparse population base. Obviously, everyone who buys a mobile phone, and there's a few people in the audience have already seen carrying their foldable 5G smartphones. In a 5G environment, the entertainment, augmented reality, things like that, that will be a significant change in the way you digest content. And we're seeing from Korea, early adopters go from using 10 gigabytes a month to 30 gigabytes a month on 5G. It's a significant jump up in data consumption. From a transformation point of view, we are seeing enterprise, and the use cases you see tomorrow, are largely enterprise-driven. And some of them are fantastic. If you see the idea of people being able to walk around with cameras on their body and being able to manage large crowds, security issues, there's significant benefits that can happen, and they're easy to understand. The thing is, from a revolution point of view, what are the unknown future developments? So if I cast your mind back to 2007, did we know what 4G was going to do then as done now? In 2005, when I was launching HSDPA 1 megabits, we were debating what would you actually use mobile broadband for, 1 megabits. In those days, you still had the PCM CIA card. I was like, what would a person do possibly with 1 megabit on their laptop? Today, nobody wants 1 megabit. That's just not enough to do anything. So the thing is, the revolution is coming. It's probably going to be in the device or the way you consume data, the way you consume the internet. And there's a lot of talk of augmented reality, virtual reality, glasses. I don't expect that we'll want to be walking around the street with the big Oculus glasses on yet. But if you're an esports or you're a gaming fan, there is nothing better than what you can think of as high-speed bandwidth, low latency, and the ability to consume gaming wherever you are, not be confined to your dark little study in the basement of the house. Because gamers are actually very social, despite what you may think. So, other big factor is from a cost considerations. Already outlined, there's 574 billion in capex expected to be spent. But and there's some benefits. Samir mentioned a lot of things around 5G, around energy efficiency, network flexibility, the latency. But there's a lot of things also delivered by 5G that will actually improve the network operators' ability to manage their network and to provide services. This is the first generation where actually operators can really commit a quality of service to an enterprise, which makes a massive difference in the type of services that can be provided. Then the final one, big dependencies, around regulatory framework and the availability of standards and the market conditions. So policy framework, Samir mentioned a few things. There's a lot of things that 5G sort of amplify that have been around for a long time. There's a massive growth in spectrum required, and the ITU is busy beavering away on, we just had the WRC, great success. The next WRC will also be a lot around 5G, and there is a journey and a path that will be followed to get there. From a technology readiness point of view, the standards keep to evolve. So most operators are launching with non-standalone, but there's a migration to standalone, and it's really standalone that's going to deliver some of these big, high-speed, low-latency numbers and the use cases you talk about. That is still to come. Then, of course, actually market conditions. We've all got, most countries around the world, actually just about all countries around the world, now have 4G and have a different maturity of the 4G market. The thing is, a lot of the use cases you're seeing, a lot of the changes to lifestyle impact that can actually be started on 4G. And we would certainly encourage in a country, in any nation, and that's why we encourage actually what Malaysia is doing, is bringing together the ecosystem, bringing together industry, and actually starting the journey, starting to build the impact that 5G will then just enhance. Rather than thinking that the launch of 5G is going to be a step change, actually have a trajectory so that 5G enhances. And that's where I come to the point is, it's not all just about 5G. It's important that we also continue to build the ecosystem in 5G. Get to enterprise, starting to think about the impact and that 5G will have in the future, and that build towards that. So that's everything, especially around things like massive IoT. We are already having what GSMA considers it is the period of intelligent connectivity, where we have 5G, massive IoT, AI, and big data. And those things will come together in this period of intelligent connectivity, where the connectivity is adapting to the use case and adapting to the needs of enterprise. And it's important that we start on that path and not just wait for 5G. Because you can see there that across Asia-Pacific, developed Asia-Pacific is about 50% by 2025 will be on 5G, but the rest will be on 4G. But as I said at the start, for the rest of Asia-Pacific, it's really still a 4G market in 5 years' time. The important thing is, mobile is connecting the unconnected. So we actually have large parts of the population who are covered by 4G or by mobile broadband, but they're not using it yet. And so the issue is, it's not about the infrastructure, it's not about the network performance, it's about things like affordability, digital skills, and content. And when I say affordability, that could be the device, that could be the cost of the service. But affordability is really a measure of value. So if you don't think it's worth the time and the effort and the money, then maybe one way of making it more affordable is improving the value of the content, the relevance, and the impact of the content. And then making it easier for people to use. A cost of using content is the skills, the difficulty of accessing. So improving digital skills is another way of getting people more connected and more inclusive in the digital economy. Finally, just go through, obviously IoT is a massive part of the 5G story, and we expect more than 11 billion connections by 2025 in Asia Pacific. There's a lot of numbers there in the consumer, and we are seeing a lot of smart homes and smart lifestyle, and that's what we expect to see in Malaysia too, a very big impact from this. And it's contributing to economic growth massively. So 18 million jobs in the region, about 10 million directly and 8 million indirectly, come from the mobile industry. And that's contributing around 165 billion in public funding through taxes that are keeping economies going, in addition to the GDP impact of the mobile industry, which is all contributing to bringing people out of poverty, into education, into health, and improving lives in an inclusive way. And as mentioned before, 15 years ago, when I was launching HSDPA, we weren't thinking about sustainable development goals. Well, at the time, they didn't exist. But we weren't thinking about how we were changing people's lives for the better, how we were lifting them in their economic potential. Now it is a big part of the mobile industry, and we've seen from 4G the massive impact that technology is happening around the world in all countries, and the ability to lift people and achieve the sustainable development goals. to create digital societies of the future. Because it's all around getting connected, having an identity online so that you can have your digital commerce, your digital lifestyle, and admirably by MCMC's work here, your digital citizenship, your participation in society. And so for me, the path, 5G as we stand here on the dawn is, some could say is not known. I mean, we're working on use cases, we're trying things. The industry is ambitious, and the Malaysian government has brought people together to strive for a vision. But the good thing is we have pioneers like MCMC, pioneers like the mobile operators in this country, and pioneers as the industry comes together, who are going to illuminate the path to the future and illuminate a vision of an inclusive digital future that benefits all in society. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much for your time and enjoy the day. Thank you.